Welcome back to the podcast, and it's an absolute pleasure for me to speak to John Power this week. John Power is an absolute hero of mine. We spoke in great detail about Cast's debut album, and then we fast forwarded 20 odd years to the new album, Love Is a Call, which is out February the 16th. Love Is a Call, in John's words, investigates the space between the last album and Cast's debut album, All Change. We spoke about all that, and honestly, the album is sublime. Everybody go and get it checked out. As well as that, we spoke about Liverpool, about Jurgen Klopp and who's going to replace him, and we also got John's views on what socks we should all wear. I hope you all enjoy the podcast. I've got some fantastic guests coming up. Stay tuned. Contact me on all the social media platforms, and more importantly than ever, just share the podcast, like the podcast wherever you get it, comment on it, and just tell all your friends. On the show today, I have a proper legend, bass player in the Lars, lauded as one of the bands of a generation in the late 80s. He went on to form one of the most successful bands of the Britpop era, 3 top 10 albums, 10 top 20 singles, 5 of which were top 10, and they're back with a new album in February 16. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to John Power of Cast. What I do at the start of the podcast, John, if you just go back to the start and what was life like for a young John Power growing up?
Hello. Yeah. Well, in the early days, there's a freedom that you can't buy, really, and there's a freedom that only exists for a certain time period, because although you have nothing, you have everything ahead of you if you've got like some sort of, I don't know, some sort of vision that you're trying to form. So in the early days, you're talking about the early days, like, you know, post-teens, beginning of my musical kind of career, or you're talking like, you know, post nappies.
Well, I even just growing up as a youngster at school and that, what was that?
Well, at school I was a kind of, you know, I was probably quite bright in certain subjects that took my fancy, you know, spent most of my time, very strangely, I was looking for my birth certificate and my Mars a few month or two back, and I came across a lot of the old school reports. I read them, and it was like, you know, most of them were really, you know, about a boy disinterested, really, probably in school, and all the teachers saying, you know, John has talent, but he just, you know, and we've spoken to him and he assures us he's going to do better this term, but he spends most of his time just probably distracting others and daydreaming. So it was a, and I think I put that down to the way the state education is run, really. Being older now and knowing that and looking into other ways that could be taught, you know. And I think of all the other lost souls who went through the state system, who could have been, well, whatever, could have been encouraged to find their path. It just so happened that I was a big music fan, not really a musician as such at the time. And so I went through school like that, meandering, not really thinking of much consequences ahead of me. I had a feeling within that life was a wonderful thing, you know, coupled with the anxieties of most teenage kids growing up in big cities, you know, peer pressure to act in certain ways, not quite sure of who you are, you know, trying to find your way through it all, like, you know, being a bit of a joker, being a bit of this, anything to survive, really, you know, anything to play the survival card until you catch that, until you find your ticket out of there. I want to say out of there. I don't actually mean location, but out of there, being yourself, so that you can start to follow something that is of interest and of guidance. And that took me, you know, out of school with with nothing to show for it, really, but still buoyant, still buoyant within that life was that there was something ahead of me. I always had that funny feeling, like, you know, when certain friends were like, you know, on a down. You got to remember, this was Thatcher.
Yeah.
Thatcher's Britain. There was not many opportunities for working class kids unless they had some sort of drive or some sort of, you know, interest. Some kids did go to a university. Some kids, you know, found art and whatever it was. So I was kind of at a bit of a loose end for a long time. Listening to music, discovering things, finding my way, finding my identity. And then I picked up a bass guitar whilst having to travel to London for a job that I was forced to take by my older brother, who was a bit of a square. Like, he was down in London and I wanted to I was dossing around. Anyway, his girlfriend at the time got me a temporary job in Croydon for 3 months or something, on in the Home Office, would you believe, the clerical assistant. And I blagged them that my exam results I was retaking them because I didn't have anything. But I had this job and I bought a bass, and I can remember vividly National Express down to London, travel across, get to Brixton, get the bus to Croydon, and I'd have my bass in a bin bag. And I can remember some of the old sort of West Indian fellas always kind of giving me a nod and a bit of a chat, like, you know, because I had this bass in a bin bag. Here's the bin bag bass carrying boy again, you know. And so I just learned a few I was getting, music kind of came into my life as a player later on, and but it really opened up the whole idea of dream reality of. I kind of just thought, wow, this has got to be it. Like, you know, I really want to, you know, get into this. And so from then on, I just was convinced that that fortune had played its cards, and that I was in the right, you know, in the right direction. And I continued, go on. Yeah.
And why did you buy a bass guitar? What was the reason for that?
4 strings. No, I'll be honest with you. I used to sit in my mate's attic. We used to call it HQ, and it was covered in collages of Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, and pretty much psychedelic music. And it was a place where a group of my friends, maybe 12 of us at tops, normally 8, you know, and we kind of had our baptizing sort of moments of, you know, we were smoking a bit of dope, we were getting high, we were discovering all these guitar bands from the 60s to the 70s, and slightly retro, I guess. But it was like a real sort of opening education for me. I got into loads of music that I hadn't heard of, or I didn't know, you know, guitar music, psychedelic music, heavy music, you know, all that sort of thing. And we sat there for for a year and a half. It's felt like a lifetime, really. It was a real education, and we were up all night. We were, as I said, getting into this music. And Millie, he played the drums. Another lad had the guitar. Two other lads had the guitar, and someone said, I just thought, oh, well, I'll get a bass, And that was the first time I thought, oh my God, I'm going to play a bloody instrument, because it always felt like music was played by other people. I mean, I used to listen and sing music, in the bathroom, in bed, in the bedroom, as you're a kid, in the living room, and no one was there, record on. So music was massive. I knew the kind of spiritual feeling that I got from music, but I never thought of myself as I was going to be a player. But once I made that decision, then something opened up, and I just thought, I'm on one. I'm on, I let it take care of me, really. And then via the base, the job centre and things like that, I got onto a little musical course. It's where I met Mike Badger, who introduced me to Lee, played me Son of a Gun. Straight away, man, I just was like, it was the real thing from day one.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's it. I mean, the Laz album is lauded everywhere. I mean, the songs on it, There She Goes. Everything about it it's perfect. You know what I mean? How has it kind of been involved in that? Being kind of in the Irish.
I don't see it from the outside. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I was in the Irish Storm. I don't see it. I understand what you're saying, but I can't. I can't experience it because I was in the thing. Sorry, I'll have to ignore that. I am actually. I was in it. I mean, it felt just like it felt natural. It felt like the real thing. There was no, I didn't. When I was in the Lars, I was, a La, like, and it was all consuming. Never thought outside of the Lars. My whole life, my heartbeat was within the Lars, and it was. I mean, if you're asking me, did we know how good we were? Then yeah, we thought we were the best band in town. And, I'd say we were like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd go along with that. So, I mean, obviously, like, as the lads went on and it took so long for the album to come out and the frustrations with.
Yeah, there was a lot of frustrating times in the studio, coupled with a lot of great times, because, there was lots of times where we recorded great music and the session was going well. It wasn't all doom and gloom. It just inevitably, I think, now looking back, is that, whenever it came to completion or whenever it was coming out, Lee's probably, he had very high standards, but also there's probably a bit of, I can't speak for him, I don't know about his upbringing, his psychology, but there's obviously reasons why, as well as technical reasons, there's probably other reasons why, we'd always pull it back. I would say it was very difficult to capture the beauty and essence of the Lars in a room. That vibration, that frequency, it doesn't really transpose into the modern way of recording at them times. If it was today, maybe people would have been more. Well, I don't know. I just think it is what it is, But yeah, I mean, there was good times. It just inevitably came, after there seemed to be a process of repetition where we'd get so far with a recording, and then Lee would probably pull back, from there. He had some very good reasons to pull back. I'm not saying it was just all down to a lack of confidence, probably a lack of confidence in the recordings, and rightly so. It's hard. If I listen to some of the stuff, it doesn't sound like the Lars, but that's, although some of it's dead exciting. I mean, if I listen to the album and I listen to Son of a Gun, you know, for me, that just doesn't capture what that song is. There are moments on that album where actually, you know, there's some guitars are doing the thing, and the songs are so good, and the band performances are great, and that actually, you know, I can maybe look at them a bit more fondly because they're the only recordings that people have, and plus, I haven't got to lock horns with anyone anymore. I like, you know, I mean, I'm over all that. I haven't got the energy to lock horns either with record companies or even, you know, the dynamics within the band. But yeah, you know, I don't know. Go on.
So, like, speaking about band dynamics, then, and obviously, like, as the frustrations grew, and then you left,
Yeah.
and one minute you're a bass player, backing vocals, then the next year, front man, front and centre of a band. So, how did that come about? You
Well,
feel
I'll
pressure?
tell you, I didn't want to be the front man of a band. I wanted to, you know, I've only just realised this recently, I was just kind of becoming a really good bass player and vocalist, you know, and I kind of had my own style of bass, and I was very happy, you know, in that position, shall we say, playing that character. But you know, I did have songs, and they were originally written maybe to be in the Lars, but anyway, because a long story short, it became it. You know, I left after so many years, and it became just frustrating. I think for Lee, for me, and everyone involved. You know, it was like so. I had to take a decision about the songs I had, and I had some really, really, you know, strong songs. They were emotive. They were inspiring me to take up. I mean, who else is going to sing them? I mean, it's very simple. I had to sing them because no one else is going to, you know. And so I became a singer and a rhythm guitarist. It's weird. I'm only just now what I would consider, you know, a very good rhythm guitarist. It was a struggle, you know. It was a struggle in the early days because you know, I just had to pick up an acoustic guitar and go, right, here you go. And I had to sing. So I did all my learning in front of people. It's not like I had 5 years sitting in the bedroom or 4 years in the band, you know, trying, you know, doing all this. It just came at us, and we were moving fast. Although there was a period of time when the band cast wasn't right, the lineup wasn't right, and things like that. But I guess I'm a singer-songwriter, frontman of a band, you know, and that's the process of why I became it. I think deep down, then I must have always wanted to sing, or I wouldn't have tried to write songs. I wouldn't have took up the backing vocal mic to sing with Lee. Lee was such a great singer and all that. And you know, you know, can you imagine if it would have been like some really crappy backing, someone going on the BVs? You know, I mean, we had a dynamic there, which was great, and that dynamic built me into what it was. I went and Cass became the vehicle for those for the songs and for the continuation of the musical journey, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking at Britpop, I was reading somewhere that cast were kind of likened to like the Who, the Britpop era, which I always thought, but I'd never heard anybody else say it. Obviously, you had Oasis were likened to the Beatles, Blur were like the Kinks, and you had all these kind of bands. So you all had kind of your own wee niche.
Yeah.
Was it
The two were
daunting
very
kind of stepping
important.
into the Britpop scene at that time where there was such big hitters all over the place?
There was big hitters all over the place. It was a mass. I mean, it was a very eclectic bunch of bands as well. They weren't all just, you know, this side. There was a whole, you know, there was a whole indie spectrum going on. You know, we were very inspired early days by the Who. I was very inspired by the Who, and the band were very inspired by the Who. The Who were a big as I said, a big inspiration in the early days. And I think when you're younger, you like to show them inspirations. You want to be that band, weirdly. And most good bands seem to have an influence. And what happens is they want to be like something, and they kind of end up creating their own identity by doing that. Yeah, I mean, all change, and the early days of Cast, and still even today when we perform certain songs, I'd say more so today because there's a looseness in the band's performance, which is weirdly makes it tighter.
Mm-hmm.
But there was it was a that sort of intense, chord driven, melodic kind of pop rock. That was our vibe. Yeah,
I mean, if you look at when you come out, like the run of singles, as I touched on it in the intro, your first 10 singles were all top 20. As I said, five of them were top 10, and this was just like one after the other. So, how does that come about? I mean, that's just hit after hit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's beautiful when things go the way you imagine them to. I've said this before, and I just never had any doubts that the songs, were going to do big things. I thought the band and the songs and the record All Change was going to be a big mover in when we got signed and in the scene that was going on. I mean, Britpop is something that was a terminology by journalists and people like that. But yeah, it's funny because once Fine Time came into the charge, it was always about continuing it. See, it's strange, really. In hindsight, I sometimes wish I'd have pulled back, but because we got that success, then we had to kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, the singles on All Change, Fine Time, All Right, Sandstorm, Walk Away. I mean, Four Walls could have been a single. So there's other songs that could have been singles.
Yeah, I mean, I would have had every song in that album as a single.
Yeah, I mean, it's so we had all that, and I just thought, especially with the kind of feeling and the atmosphere of the times, I just thought, I never doubted we weren't going to kind of do what we did, to be honest with you. I mean, take that how you like. I mean, I said this was going to happen, and it did happen. I'm not a prophet or a seer, but I had no doubts whatsoever that Cast were going to hit the big time, if you want to call it that. Commercially, I thought the record was great. I thought the band was stunning, and we just believed it 100%. And the industry was ready for bands of our ilk and bands of other ilk. It was a great time to be in a band, I guess, because I suppose after that things have changed. Record buying public. I'm talking about the singles, the charts, the TV show, the radio, Radio 1. I mean, there are charts and there are still pop music, and I'm sure it's as important to people, younger generations than me. But it just feels like that the 90s was encapsulating all the generations before it as well. It was all coming to a head, and then it was over in the sense of the zeitgeist changed completely, and people, digital formats, tracks, being able to jump from one to the other. I know vinyl's big again. It's big in my life, and it's big in everyone else's. But I'm just saying that tangible thing where you bought something and you held it, you put it on, and they were your band. You went to see them for like a $5 or whatever it was. It was all very accessible, and you could pick it, and there for you to hold. So it was the end of it. I feel it was the end of that period of post 50s, 60s, 70s. It was all building up to and I think the 90s Britpop was the end of that, really. I think everything's changed, and you know, all things change, you know.
Yeah, it's just how you adjust it, and
Well,
obviously you mentioned that you had a couple of songs that were kind of you've been writing during the Lars.
yeah.
Was there any other influences for the Lars on All Change? Just because, like, listening to it, back of my mind,
Yeah.
the lyrics kind of seem to suggest there, or what I got for it was you were singing about Lee.
Well, I was never singing. I'll tell you one thing, because I don't. I mean, I haven't listened to All Change. I know most of it, you know, I suppose. Anyway, but the lyrics, you know, I was writing consciously and subconsciously, you know, so everything would have been in there in a very young boy's naivety, and his ideals and all that. It was all in there. I mean, I had spent 6 or 7 years in the Lars or whatever it was, and so it would have. Yes, I would have been. There would have been my frustration and admiration, and you know, wanting to bring a bit of that, you know, to finish the story or finish my story. Once I realized, you know, I couldn't continue the Lars and I couldn't parody the Lars, and you know, I mean, who could and who would want to? Because Lee is such an amazing, you know, generational songwriter, you know, but he was a big influence. And the Lars, as I said, you know, I've got nothing but love for it. Like now, you know, I can say that freely. But Cast, I was obviously writing about things like that. I mean, I don't know, Walk Away, back of my mind, These Four Walls, I'll never get out of here. I wrote that in the studio when I was with the Lars were doing their the last take that finally came out. And I can remember sitting in the bleeding room, you know, in the living room, because they all have these ensuite kids, you know, like the hangout areas. And I just said that. No, I didn't go, I'm going to go into the room and say, am I ever going to get out of this fucking studio? But I obviously just sang what come out of my head. And I think being young, that's how things happen in that stage. All that album was just, you know, I didn't have to think about subject matter, find time to make a change. It just came out. I just said it. And that's because obviously my circumstances, you know, the Lars, real life, dream reality, and all these things were interconnected. And I was just throwing out sound bites and saying things, but they were obviously personal, without being specifically about anyone. Mm-hmm. You know, I always said that it had to be open to interpretation by the listener. You know, I mean, that's a nice way of looking at it in a highbrow thing, you know. But at the time, when people ask me about songs, that's what I said. It might be about something, but it's not only about that one thing. Yeah. It's got to be wider, and it's got to be bigger than the definition, or bigger than the will to limit it. You know what I mean? So a song has to be able to be interpreted by the person who's listening to the song, and that's the beauty about music. That's the beauty about all art and all the things, because it's your personal feelings that guide it, and where, you know, it's is it objective? It makes you, or subjective? Sorry, it makes you. You know, it's why we like one thing, you'd like something else. You know, I don't like that, you do like it, but it's the best thing in the world for someone else. You know what I mean?
It is kind of funny. Is, like, obviously, I was a teenager when All Change came out, so listening to it now, I've got a different kind of meaning to it than I had at the time.
Yeah.
So it kind of the meaning of an album to certain people changes as they get older, and they.
Of course. Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, we could go through every album, but we've not got all day. But the new album, which I've had the pleasure of listening to,
fantastic,
absolutely brilliant. And it's at first listen, I thought it's ideal companion to All Change. It's like it could have been released directly after All Change, but after listening to you in a few other interviews, you've kind of mentioned it's probably the bridge between the La's and All Change. It sits in that kind of company, which once I've heard you saying that, I kind of get that as well.
So, I should have kept my mouth shut.
So how was it kind of recording this album? Because it seems like it seems like you just stepped back in time 20 odd years and you're making your best stuff.
I have to say that, you know, firstly, I'm made up that you've heard it, because it makes it easier for me to talk to you about it. And now I'm at the point that I'm really excited and want people to hear the album, you know, because I've been talking about it now. The thing about stepping back, I know what you mean. I've tried to describe it as I got an epiphany that debut albums, you know, everyone's debut album is fucking amazing. You know, why is that? And now, so I just realised that obviously there's this amazing energy generally. So what I wanted to do was capture the energy, and I've already said that, you know, we were further down the line. So as a songwriter, I need to kind of, you know, I'm not wet behind the ears and all this stuff. I think the idea was Alan McGee and me, he just lit a fuse when he said to me, John, just go and write a fucking great record. You know, you've got it in you. He said, you can do that. And I just realised that I can't mess around, you know, with some good stuff. I could write, you know, I've got loads of good songs. And there's got to be an identity to the album. It can't just be a bunch of good songs. It's got to be better than that. What can make something better than having good songs? Well, then they all have to have something together. All Change has got that. It's got a continuity. You put it on and you can tell all them songs run after each other. Well, I feel that this album's the same. You know, it builds a little bit slower in the first half, and then it just hits you. And then I just thought, well, what would I want to write a record like? You know, what turned me on? Well, I'd want to write, a record between Revolver and Hunky Dory and everything in between. If I was a kid, that would be my thing, you know. And so also I jumped back into the space that I told you about, between the La's and between All Change, because I'd never done it before, because, you know, the cast couldn't be a pale imitation of the La's, you know. A cast had to have their own thing. And so everything started to come to form in my head. And it took a while, like, I mean, you know, the idea formed, you know, and my rhythm playing started doing. So it's all like that. A lot of the acoustics are bouncing, you know. I started going into the demos without the band, so that when I ended up playing them to the band, it had its identity. There's no pussyfooting about. No Keith, no Skin. We can't play it in certain ways. This has to be within this framework. And so I got it all together. I played bass on the demos. On some of them, I was like, wow, this is, you know, this is happening. I got the boom, like rock and roll, punky beats going. I just knew, you know, that it had to be jumping, you know, and that's where it all. Once that started grabbing hold of me, then there was no stopping it, really, in the sense that I was focused. I was getting up in the morning. I was playing my guitar for 6 hours until I was worn out. I had loads of songs that didn't make it on the album. Some of them just because we just didn't have time to record them. Some of them we did, and in the end, they were very good. But we maybe had something that already was doing it, so we've got a couple of extra tracks knocking around. I didn't want to put, in the old days, I might have put them all on, but it's like, you know, it's got 11 tracks and they all work, and all of a sudden the whole thing just started taking shape, and I had a vision again, and I thought, this is going to be the last record Cass make. And I told the band that, I don't know if it is. But the idea that this is going to be the last record we make, it puts you on you know, it's like
Yeah,
we're going.
and you put everything into it.
Yeah, I said so. Skin and Key. I have to say, you know, coupled with Youth's amazing, you know, input, arrangements with me and him. I mean, I worked amazingly with Youth. I'll forever be thankful of letting them into my life on this record. It changed the way I worked. He was straight and clear to the point about certain things. He didn't rub my ego. He didn't, you know, massage the ego or say what I needed to hear. We got on the same page, and we arranged, and I rewrote some ideas and things if they didn't seem right. And when we worked with the band, he was amazing in grasping the identity of the record and getting, you know, coercing and maneuvering Keith and Skin to do what they needed to do, you know, because I can say what I say, but it's great when the producer goes, oh, no, hang on. So if I'm on the bass, Keith has to go, I mean, everything fell in and Keith and Skin played them. I mean, the performances on this album, I don't think are better on any other record we've ever done. I'll say that, like Defo, even All Change. I mean, All Change is some record, but the musical performances, I think the playing on this record is Cast's best.
Yeah.
You know,
I was sceptical because it's been so long, and like the last couple of albums weren't maybe as direct as this. So you're always a bit wary when you listen to an album, but there's so much energy, so much directness, it grabs you right away. I was going to kind of touch on that a lot of what you said. Obviously, me being Scottish, one of my favourite bands is The View.
Oh yeah.
And the similarities, obviously, they've dropped.
They worked with Youth as well, didn't they? Yeah.
They've dropped a member. They've went to a 3-piece, the same as yourself. They've got McGee managing them. They've got Katie's doing PR, and they've got Youth produced that album. So, do you think maybe Youth was able to kind of, as you say, like capture the band identity and what it was that made them so good, and kind of bottle that and bring it
I'd
back?
like to think, well, maybe Alan's getting a bit of a dynasty going again, you know, because I think the bands that first they need to, you got to want to get back to what you do best, I guess, you know. And if you can only do, I think I can only speak on my behalf, on Cass's behalf, you know, but I know that I know that I, as the kind of, you know, the creative force in the band, wanted us to get back to something at our best. I think every band must take that on board. You know, as I said, there comes a point where I didn't want to make another good record. I wanted to make another seminal record, and there's a difference there. I can't speak on behalf of other bands, but you know, I mean, I see the View now. They're on the same management. We've been crossing paths and, you know, saying hello and all that. And I don't know all their history. I mean, we are a 4-piece live.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we're a 3-piece, you know, contractual band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just so happened on this record, I wanted to play the bass. I didn't know I wanted to play the bass, but I did deep down, because I knew that the process was that when we got the acoustics and the drums and that down, Youth was just going to say, shall we do some bass, John? I just knew it. And I was going to say, give me a run through, because I already knew the song. I kind of had an idea. So, and then I'd knock it down and he'd say, that's perfect. We've got it. Let's move on. Now, if I'd have had a bass player with me, I'd have had to do that, knock it down perfectly, you know, off the cuff, off a feel, and then say to someone, oh, can you play that? Which would have just been, it just wouldn't have made sense. You know what I mean? What's the use of you getting someone to play bass that I just put down to reproduce something that was originally brilliant or brilliant for the song? And so we ended up as a 3-piece recording it. We'll be a 4-piece live because we need the bass player. We need the bass player to do that. The View, I mean, The View had a good moment. There's a lot of good bands on a resurgence of sorts, and I think maybe it's discovering your identity again, and having a clear energy to put it back. You can only do so much with an idea. The rest of it has to all the magic has to be there. And as I said, I can speak on my behalf. I wouldn't, I think it'd be wrong of me to speak for what other bands got excited, what excites them. But definitely, it's definitely, I mean, bands like The View, especially who are managed on Alan McGee's creation, and they kind of.
I mean, McGee's definitely not lost his ear.
Yeah, no, they found their mojo and all that, and it's a good feeling. I know it's a good feeling for us.
Obviously, with the album coming out next month, previously I've spoke to other guys of your era. I spoke to Andy Miller for Dodgy. I spoke to Mark Morris for the Blue Tones, and kind of similar story where kind of 20 years on, they're having a resurgence. And I kind of put it down to the audience or the fan base, kind of similar to yourselves. You kind of, at some point, you need to get away and have families and grow up. And then 20 years down the line, your families have grew up and your audience is back. And that's kind of, if you look at Shed 7, they've just come out and banged out a #1 album. So do you think maybe 20 years down the line that you've got the audience back and you'll be able to kind of pick up your old fans and bring some new fans in along the way?
Well, it's a fair point, I guess. I think maybe audiences are remembering what was good in their life musically. Secondly, there will be a new generation of people getting involved. But I think the reason that we're having a resurgence, I mean, we made a conscious effort as a band after kicking up the dust. Do we stick around and try to build it up? Because we were at a kind of, we were at quite a low ebb at some point. But the band's performances were always quite special. So that always gave me faith that, this band are good. These are great. It's a really great live band, got great back catalogue. If we ever make a great record, we just have to be in the right place. And I think there's a lot of things about time. And I feel I've been driven for a while. And I think this is the record that I've been wanting to make with the band for a long time. I just hadn't wrote it or written it. And the band had never done it. I think it's dead important for Cast to write, to have this record, to do this, record this record. It's been in the back of my head probably for a decade, not the songs, but the whole idea of coming back with something. I had to find that sweet spot that felt, that energized and felt fresh. And that came along. I've been driven towards this. Family, yeah, you're right. I mean, the band did split up for 9 years, I think. And then we've been back together for the same length of time, I guess. But it's all about time, and it's all about vision, and ultimately unfinished business. I knew this record hadn't been written. I really did, and I knew that if I was ever going to do it, it was going to be about now. And I just think everything came to the fore. The opportunity arose. Alan told me, I just knew. Sometimes you just smell the coffee and it's like, you can't fuck about here and expect other people to give me a break. No one's going to give me a fucking break. No one's even going to fucking, they're not going to fucking play me on the record. They're not going to say we were an icon. There's enough things that going against us. The only thing that I can do that's going to turn heads or give us energize the band is if I write something that's listenable to people who don't like the band and fucking amazing for people who do like the band. I have to deal in that currency, and I think this is the record that says that there's life in the old dog. Yeah, there's things to be said. there's things to, there's things. This is fucking new for me, but it's not new like novel. This is new, but it feels fresh. This is what I mean when I say it's like a debut. I can only say it's like a debut because this is what having a debut record feels like. You feel fucking good. You don't need to fucking explain it to anyone, because if they don't get it, then fuck them. It's not for them. But you know what I mean? It's like, I just know this is the best record I could have made at this time. And so I've got fucking nothing to prove, and I feel fulfilled in that sense, Where it leads, I do not know. Will the band write another record? Will I write another record? Probably, This may be the start of reminding me what it needs to be like. And I could never write an album that would be less than this for Cast again. It's going to have to always be of this standard, or I'm not doing it, So that's a great thing,
That's amazing. If we're just going to get albums in that standard constantly, then
this is
I'm
it.
all in.
If Cast are going to be, anything, they've got to be on this thing, because it's only this that really matters to people. A record. When you listen to the artists that you love yourself, if you put their best records on, it's as simple as that. People want to listen to their favorite bands' favorite records, and hopefully this is going to be one of them for Cast. People are going to grab All Chains, they're going to grab Love Is the Core, Mother Nature's, whatever they want to do, But I think this is the one that has excited me. I mean, I'm going on again now, This is why I don't like fucking speaking to people, because I rant on, but I'm excited by it, and that's all I can say. That's the best thing. That's the best feeling I can have. So, where it goes, I don't know. I can't wait to get out and play them.
Well, that's it. I'm coming to see you in Glasgow. Is that the opening night of the tour?
It is the 1st of March.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And then you get Liam Gallagher support as well.
That's fucking amazing. Good old Liam, that. You know what I mean? He, we've got a story, me and Liam. Like, we go way back, and we've meandered and crossed paths throughout the 30 years. And they've always been quite, important turning points, And so I'm just, we're thrilled to be opening for Liam on the Definitely Maybe tour. Like, it's a massive ticket
for that one, are you?
We're not doing Glasgow because the View are doing it. I'm gutted. Well, I'm happy for the View. But I just mean, we love playing Scotland as well. But his mates are there as well. We've got 10 shows out of the 15 or whatever, which is fucking amazing. So I'm thankful massively. But we're not doing Glasgow. But we're doing the rest of the tour. But it's a massive opportunity to connect with people. I mean, to connect into the main artery again. There's a load of people there who love Cast. They just don't fucking remember. And there's a new generation who love Liam and will love Cast. So it's amazing. It's just great to be part of it as well. To have a new album out that we're so excited about, and to have our own tours, and then to be on Liam's tour, it's just massive. It's a massive year. I couldn't. Yeah. It's the type of comeback you want.
What have you got after that? Have you get festivals or?
We've got festivals through the summer. We've got probably a tour in autumn. I don't know if it's been announced, but they've put a couple of Irish dates together. So I guess there's going to be other dates added to all that. And I guess if we have a good, if the album's received well and all what's going on, then that will take us into next year's festival season, I guess. But we're going to tour, and we're going to be singing and doing our thing this year. And then I guess, I don't know, you got to have a reason to be talking to people. So we'll see where it leads and what it does, and hopefully it will get the band to a level where they can, reassess what's going on and see where we're at, and as I said, I've got songs. I think in the past I'd have been guilty of putting, loads of good songs on this record, but I kept a lot of songs off this record that didn't have the same identity. I realised early on that this record all the songs have got to be part of the same, same character. Like, they've got to have that verb. So
It's all
I've got
flow, doesn't it? The
I've got
album
some great
just flows.
songs. Yeah, it flows right through. But I've got some great songs where that might be a solo record. I don't know yet. Who knows? I've still got some songs that I wrote for this album that just didn't get on there because we only had 3 weeks to record the thing, and once we'd made the record, there's no room for anything else. Why put something else on the record when it runs perfectly and finishes perfectly? So, I don't know what the options are, but at the moment, it's all about Love's the Call,
Brilliant. Obviously, a big Liverpool fan as well. You've done a lot of work for the Hillsborough
Yes, I do.
Justice stuff. I was watching all the videos. I was watching the live concert for, was it the 90s or something? It must have been recorded in the telly or something. I was watching it on YouTube, so I was watching that earlier. But I mean, talking about Liverpool, I kind of let you go with it, speaking about Jurgen Klopp, obviously news about him leaving, which
I get it. I get it 100%. I mean, the guy is given, everything he's got. He's wrung it out. I watch him, you watch him and you think, that energy. I know how I feel after putting myself on the line. And he does it so intensely. He's carried that club. He's lifted that club, and gave it back its identity. He's got those players playing for them. They're not just playing for Liverpool. I mean, they are playing for Liverpool, but Jurgen Klopp has created a community, comrades, and they're out there fighting for each other. The fans, I'd vote for Klopp. You just know he's got all the right values. Simple as that. And we're so privileged to have had so many great managers in the past. But Klopp he got Liverpool. He got its identity. He also has an amazing persona, aura of himself, and he's just been amazing. He's what he's done with this, the second coming of his team. It's going to be a crazy 4 months because, Jesus, I never even thought about winning the league at the beginning of this season. And I always try and play it cool because I know how you only got to lose a couple of games and you're back in fourth position or something. But fucking hell, I'd love to win the league this season more than any other season because I just think it would just give Klopp, it would just be amazing for the whole thing. I'm saddened, but not really. There's only so much a man can give. Jesus Christ.
It's kind of, see when you see a man like that, because he's done it before he's left and he's took a year out, and he's a guy that's true to his word. So when you see somebody do that and make that decision, you can only commend it.
Yeah.
Who would you be looking at?
It's very early doors. I've got a soft spot for Alonso. I had a soft spot for him as a player. I thought he was like a beautiful distributor of the ball. I loved Alonso when he was playing for Liverpool. I can keep my eyes on him when he was managing the B-side, Spanish B-side. B-side. Yeah, B-side. It's like a vinyl. And then he's obviously he's doing what he's doing in Germany at the moment. I think he is more technically adept. I don't buy the kind of Gerrard thing coming back and all that. I think it would end in tears. I just think you've got to have. I love Gerrard as a player. He single-handedly by the scruff of the neck dragged Liverpool through places. Over hedges, through hedges, whatever it was. But I don't know. I don't think he's, not now anyway. He's yet to prove himself, I think, properly. He's had some good moments and some bad moments. I guess all eyes are on Alonso Whether
tell you who I would love
whether it's too soon, I don't know. But there's something about, I know for a fact that he's another guy who loved his time at Liverpool. He gets what Liverpool's about. He's experienced, you know, those magical moments, Istanbul and all that. You know what I mean? He knows what he's coming into. So if he can carry on having a great season and he feels it's ready, he's ready for it, then yeah. But I'm not looking any further down the line, really. You know, it's Klopp's season, and it's a great time. I mean, Liverpool are Liverpool, and they're playing. You know, they're kind of doing all the right things in a way that nobody's seen it coming. I mean, we've only lost one game to Spurs, and that was just by foul means, wasn't it? You know, underhand VAR.
They've done all right as well. I mean, like, you've had kind of key players injured, and obviously Salah's been away.
Yeah. No, listen.
But you've managed through on that.
Well, yesterday I was listening to the game. I was driving, but it's like we had young players now. I mean, we've got all the positions seem to be covered. We're missing a bit of a defensive midfielder, but I mean, look, we've got players. You know, this is a good squad, and if they all play out of their socks and believe in magic, then anything's possible. And wouldn't I just think, God, that would be amazing. Whatever happens, I think we all love Klopp. Like,
yeah. Selfishly, for me, I would rather you said Brendan Rodgers back, because I can't stand him at Celtic, man.
Yeah, I think Brendan. It's funny fate and fortune how, you know, when we had that run with Liverpool and Suarez and all that, and the season where Gerrard slipped. I mean, we were so close there, and we had a very exciting team. You know, Sterling, Suarez, what's his name? Well, you know what I mean. SS. Up front, we had all the Sturridge. Sorry.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean is that team played some magnificent football. It really did. But they were naive, I guess. But there's nothing wrong with that. But if we, you know, I always think, I wonder where Rodgers would have went as a person if he'd have won that. If he'd have won the league, what would he have taken out of it? You know, he was always the, you know, it's strange, isn't it? Life. It's like it's like this big novel. You know, he didn't quite make it, and then
I think that's his life. He's always kind of just one rung down.
I mean, he was close there to winning the big one. You know, with the the British English biggest team. You know, and I just think, fucking hell, what, you know, where would that have led him? You know, Suarez would have stayed. He would have taken on all that experience, maybe shit like that. You know, you do it once, you can do it again. You know, and other team. I mean, you don't know how the team wouldn't have broke up, maybe, and and whatever would have happened. It's funny fate. It's like La La Land, isn't it? That movie. You know what I mean? You take a turn and left, and you've got a whole destiny in front of you. You take a turn and right, you've got a whole destiny. You know, you miss someone in the revolving doors, and the fucking world turns out completely different. And I think that's what it's like, you know.
Yeah, and it's probably a similar story then for Gerrard, isn't it? Because he's kind of...
Yeah, well, he didn't win the league, you know. I mean, but Gerrard, as a Liverpool fan, every Liverpool fan knows what Steven Gerrard gave to the club. I watched him. I was going to match a lot them days, and I watched him, man, tackle, run, score, evoke, inspire.
Mm-hmm.
The guy couldn't have done any more as a Liverpool player, so he'll always be, held in more than high regard, by the Liverpool fans. And there's another one.
But it's a big step up, innit, for management.
I'm just saying, it's funny how fucking strange. It's like it is like some Tolstoy novel, you know what I mean? Like Gerrard slipped, and of all the fucking people, you know what I mean? And how cruel life can be, but how beautiful as well, I mean, would you swap that? Would you swap that to being a mediocre player to not slip? I mean, the guy was fucking amazing midfielder when all through his career. He was a magnificent, inspiring force of nature,
So, obviously, the podcast is called Time for Heroes. I asked my guests to pick 4 heroes to come for dinner, why they're your heroes, and what you would cook them, just to see how good a cook you are, really. But 4 heroes to come for dinner. Who would it be?
Well, that's a big one because, as I said, I was going to have to something here. Well, we could have maybe I'd have Bill Shankly.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Shankly, because he was my first sort of, when you see these people with that aura and that light, and they're just so, it's not even confident, so knowing in what they say and what they do. As a young boy, looking at Shankly and the way he spoke about, all of us working for the common goal, and we all get the rewards out of it. His ethos and his beliefs. So it'd be nice to have Shankly. I think Shankly would be easy to cook for as well. He'd probably, I don't think he'd be a connoisseur of too many things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd be, he'd probably be talking with his mouth full a bit. Explaining certain ideas that he had and all that.
It'd be brilliant to pick his brains, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I get a word in edgeways. I'd like to have Einstein round as well.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I respect a man who doesn't wear socks. Because I've got a little thing about my sock. I don't know if people know this, but I wear my socks inside out, and always
Right.
because of the seam. I don't like them. I've got one pair of socks that I wear normally, and when I put them on, I kind of always look at them in wonder, thinking, why can't all socks be made like this? There's no seam. So I wear my socks inside out, no matter what they are, and it works for me. Whereas Einstein just stopped wearing socks completely because he just couldn't be arsed with the holes and the things. So he didn't wear socks. How's that?
That's mental. You get so many. See, you go a night out now anywhere in Britain at the weekend, none of the boys are wearing socks
Yeah,
anyway.
I've got a funny feeling that Einstein even started wearing the same clothes because he just couldn't be bothered wasting time thinking about what to put on. So he might have had a row of the same stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but also, there's something about both of these people, Shankly and Einstein, something in their countenance, in the way they look. That's got to be something because if you look at Einstein, he looks like, he's got an amazing appearance, an amazing face, character that as a child, you'd be drawn to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Shankly's pretty similar. Shankly had that aura. So something about these great people. For dinner, I suppose. Oh God, yeah. So I've picked them two. As I said, I wasn't briefed on this. So we're going to have to have someone like maybe like someone like Joni Mitchell or something, just to kind of, I only know her through her songs, and her descriptions, but she's another great storyteller, but she does it with music.
Mm-hmm.
So something, maybe someone like that, she could kind of, help me out with some sort of dinner conversations, or maybe she could just help me out when I could ask her about songwriting and things like that. I could talk to Shankly about philosophy and politics, about Einstein, kind of just telling us, the theory of everything, the universe. He could say grace, even though he was Jewish, I guess. But what I mean is, he could say some sort of universal prayer or whatever. Let us all know we've got nothing to worry about, and even explain maybe the makeup of the food we were having. I guess also, who else would I like? I suppose I'm now going. I don't know, maybe John Lennon, just to kind of, he went to my school. I could ask him what his reports were like. He could ask me what my reports were like. We're from the same part of Liverpool. We've got similar brogue. Our accents and that are from the same little South Liverpool part. And maybe he could tell me, we could go a bit maybe nice to have him when he's a bit older and a bit chilled if he hadn't got shot,
Yeah.
And maybe he was chilling out a bit, he was getting over his childhood shocks and problems, losing his mother, and it'd be nice to see. Maybe all that anger could have gone out, and we could have, eased, put everyone at ease with some nice comfort foods and puddings of sorts. I don't know what the menu is going to be. I haven't decided what actually they're going to eat. So yeah, maybe we'll have a few stragglers knocking around. Just not straight away, not for the starters and dinner. But we could invite a few more people around, just to as we're finishing our dessert and pudding, so we could have a bit more of an open door and stuff like that. I mean, as I said, I've just thrown them at you.
Do you know what? I've done 50 episodes in my first season, and John Lennon was standard, and I'm maybe about 20 episodes into this, and I think you might be the first one to pick John Lennon this series. Yeah. So,
well, I only said it because I just thought, I guess that's what I can imagine everybody saying. Why didn't you pick Lennon, for dinner? But I mean, I tell you what, actually, what was the documentary that came out? Was it Let It Be? No, the one that came out, the big long one. I was amazed at McCartney there, actually.
Well, that's I spoke about that because obviously, Lennon was always my favourite Beatle. He was always kind of miles ahead of the rest. But watching that and seeing what McCartney did, he basically single-handedly dragged that album along.
You've taken the words out of my mouth. Not only did he creatively drag it, I just thought, what a beautiful fella. He seems to be the one who had the tolerance for everybody else's personalities.
Mm-hmm.
He was really generous with his being. He was explaining to Ringo or George that John was in love and they just wanted to be together. Ringo, he just seemed to have this. Whether he was always like that, I don't know. Or whether, you find people at the time, George was a bit had enough, hadn't he? You could tell.
Yeah.
But McCartney, whether that was just something that he'd grown into and that it was just caught in that time, But I just thought all my assumptions and all these myths that you hear about McCartney, I thought they'd all just flew out the window after that. I just thought, what an amazing musician. I mean, what an amazing musician. I mean, he was turning Lennon's 12-bar instinct to be every day into fucking boom, boom, boom. He was just fucking stunning. So, I mean, I might change it. I thought, maybe Lennon could come for starters, McCartney could come for
you can have them all in if you want. But
for dessert.
I say four, but I'm not really that strict on it.
But the vibe might, it might be as if I'm trying to get the Beatles back together. They might be on their guard, whereas you want them to be a bit chilled and relaxed. Maybe Lennon just was passing through. When McCartney came, and because I think he'd probably be more open at dinner, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, if John's having a bit of a bad day, he might just, be a bit quiet through the whole thing. You know what I mean? Might be a bit awkward, mightn't it? You know what I mean? I should have brought
that documentary as well.
Should have brought Freud as well. I should have brought one of the psychologists in, and he could have picked my head apart and everyone else's, over dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking hell. Anyway.
With that documentary, were you surprised that all that footage had kind of just lay dormant for all those years?
Well, it all goes down to the original director, I guess. who was in there, who kind of was this kind of big toff, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think obviously with all the time that passed and the Beatles had split up, and you know, John and George had both passed away, being, you know, so what was his name? Peter, someone who was editing it all and directing it now.
Yeah.
He was you know, you've got a different viewpoint of it all, haven't you, I guess. So he kind of made he found all that footage and he kind of put it together in a very beautiful way. Like, so it was very revealing. I just couldn't believe how amazing, you know, what was amazing as someone in the band was that you got them just, you know, sitting around with little amps, having a cup of tea and a fag and just playing. And I was like, fucking hell, that's just like the bands I've been in. Nothing exotic about it. Nothing untouchable. Very, 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 I really felt it. And now other bands might have, I mean, if you'd done that with, say, certain big bands of the day, it'd probably been in a big rehearsal room with in-ears and all that shit. That was how it really, that's how it really is. Sorry, people calling me. So I thought it was very, very revealing, like, you know.
Yeah, it's a brilliant watch.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on today, John. Absolutely pleasure speaking to you. Just reiterate for listeners, the album Love Is a Call out February the 16th, and then cast are on tour from March the 1st.
Yeah, there's a load of in-stores as well. We're coming up to Edinburgh and Glasgow. It's Assai
Records. They're brilliant.
That's on about the 18th or something. I don't know. Somewhere, it's that week between the 16th and the week. So we're around the country doing in-stores as well. So I don't know the exact dates in front of me. I should know, but
I'll stick them on the show notes anyway for the ticket links and stuff like that. But an absolute pleasure having you on. Everybody go and listen to this album because it is sublime.
Fantastic. I'm glad you've heard it, and I'm really looking forward, as I said to everyone. You know, it's nice. I've said my piece about it all now. I just want people to hear it and give it life. You know. Yeah.
It's been so hard for me not letting any of my pals hear it, but it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well done.
Absolute pleasure having you on.
All right, lad. Okay, good talking to you again. Take it easy, man.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Time for Heroes podcast. If you would like to get in touch, the best way is on the Facebook page, Time for Heroes podcast, or on Instagram at Time for Heroes podcast, or Twitter at Time for Heroes P1, or drop me an email at timeforheroespod@gmail.com. You'll find Time for Heroes on all podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google and Amazon. Please leave a review where you can, share with others, and more importantly, enjoy.